Okay, welcome everybody to the first ever Atlanta Children's Film Festival Climate Kids panel with experts in climate change and media, creating media for all ages. So we have an amazing panel here. So I'll do introductions and then I'll hop off and I'll be monitoring and Amy will be doing the actual interview. I'll be monitoring, Amy will be moderating. So in no particular order, our guests today are Sara Poirier, who is a leading science communications consultant, founder of Spark Scientific Communications, and just an expert in communicating climate change in kids media. She's consulted on Galapagos X and Interstellar Ella, right? Okay. Just making sure I have all this stuff right. And lots more to come. So glad to have you, Sara. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
We have Kenn Viselman, who is associated with entertainment properties valued at over $20 billion. He was the producing partner on Teletubbies for America. He marketed Thomas the Tank Engine, among many others. He's the producer on Meteoheroes, which is a new animated series for younger kids about climate change superheroes. So that's going to be a part of our festival this year. So we're really excited to showcase an episode of Meteoheroes and their mini movie as part of the festival. So be sure to tune in for that. And we have Tovah Barocas, who is the president of Earth Rangers. Tovah is a Clean 50 Emerging Leader honoree, and Earth Rangers does lots of awesome work that I hope we can get into today. Our panel is going to be moderated by Amy Aidman, who is the chair of Kids Video Connections Board and Professor Emeritus of Emory University's Film and TV Department, or Film and Media Studies Department. And Amy spent her career researching and teaching about kids, media, and learning. So I'm sure this is going to be an amazing discussion. I'm the least expert in kids entertainment here, so let me hop off and I'll let you all get into it. We have a lot of great questions from our filmmakers. And so yeah, enjoy, just have fun. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. Welcome. And thank you to our esteemed guest, as well as to our filmmakers and Atlanta Children's Film Festival viewers. We're thrilled to spotlight wonderful films this year that focus on climate change and environmental issues, which some are made by youth and some are made by adults. They can be seen in our virtual cinema and in a live event on June 24th, Saturday, at a family day at Emory University. So our conversation today takes up the issues of the role of quality, developmentally tailored media content for about climate change and environmental issues, specifically for children and youth, that will educate and motivate them to be knowledgeable and to know how to take action in their own lives. After my initial question, we'll turn to questions from our filmmakers and the panel for each other. All of you are making wonderful contributions in educating, motivating, and even entertaining young people, maybe even especially entertaining young people about the climate and environmental troubles we're encountering in our world today. So I just want to kick this off by asking, what has motivated you to take your work in this direction? Sara?
Oh, all right, I'll hop in there. Well, I used to work at a large science museum in Toronto, Ontario, and I loved it. It was like my dream job, but we were only reaching, you only reach a certain portion of the population. And for over a decade, I've been doing a lot of work in television on the side. And what I loved about that is you could meet people where they are, you had access to a much larger, more diverse audience. And so that was sort of like my climate change moment, when I was really starting to get more and more concerned about climate, I knew that there was an important role for children's media to play in help getting appropriately tailored content out to them. And I sort of made that shift in about 2017, 2018. And I went back to school and did my graduate research on educational television and the role that it can play in helping kids on the issue. But it was really the fact that this medium can reach so many people where they are and just share such a diverse array of stories too, which I think is really important.
Thank you. Kenn?
This has been kind of a long journey for me personally. You know, it didn't start out that I wanted to do a show about climate change specifically. I always tend to pick subject matters that other people don't want to do, you know, or can't figure out how. So I tend to work with really great creators. We look at what the issue is and then go, how do we solve it? And the idea of trying to create a fun and funny show about climate education was like, everyone said you can't do it, you know. So a lot of other producers went out and took one of their shows that had absolutely nothing to do with climate and then tried to stick their character in it and make it make sense. But the real issue that's happening across the globe is that kids are worried to extremely worried about the planet. And the numbers are staggering. It's 84% of kids across the globe are suffering from at least one condition of post-traumatic stress disorder related to climate. So we just said, we really have no choice. You know, if you're going to be where kids are, we should be trying to create content for them instead of kind of the regurgitated content that these large studios are producing, where they have assets and they just want to try to find a way to make money off of them. And we thought, why can't you make a lot of money and do great things at the same time? Why do they need to be, you know, different, right? Why can't we be where kids are, answer their questions, and help to make the world more positive, more hopeful, and more beneficial for them? And that was the impetus. Luigi Latini had this idea. He sat down with the people at Mondo, and then they got me in to help them make the show rise to a level where we could really reach and make a difference. And just, I'm sorry, I know this has become a soliloquy. So just one last thing. What's been amazing is that we have child psychiatrists across the globe who use this series as a means of helping children deal with an emotional and mental disorder they're dealing with called climate anxiety. So it's been a really rewarding thing that has taken me from a producer to a children's advocate kind of overnight and unintentionally, but it's a role I'm proud to wear. Sorry, I took so long to answer.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, and insightful. Tovah, I know you can speak to climate anxiety from research that Earth Rangers has done.
Yeah, so I have been lucky enough to work for Earth Rangers, which is a Canadian charity, although we actually just expanded into the US and now we're North America wide, which is really focused on engaging and empowering elementary age kids. And now we're also doing some work with teenagers to take positive action for the environment. And really for a long time, for kind of the first 15 years of our existence, our mission was really focused on kind of creating the next generation of conservationists. And it's really only been in the last maybe 3-4 years that we kind of see a dual mission now, which is obviously this long-term change that we want to see in young people and in like the next, you know, kind of group of voters and people, business leaders and politicians, but also combining that with this urgent issue now, which Kenn was just talking about, which is eco-anxiety, and making sure that we're focused on empowering kids to try to address that issue, because that's really an urgent thing we need to deal with. So at Earth Rangers, all of our programs are developed with that lens in mind, understanding that different age groups have different mental capacity or intellectual capacity to understand the issue. So what may be appropriate for, you know, a 16-year-old to engage in climate advocacy or some kind of a climate march might not be the same action that's appropriate for, you know, a 7 or 8-year-old. But it's also really important that we engage every age group in a way that helps to alleviate these feelings of stress and anxiety. You know, a lot of our programs have been focused on in-school assemblies. We have an online app, but even we've started to get more into media, similar to what Sara was saying about just wanting to expand our reach and reach kids everywhere that they are. So we've done that through podcasting, which has been really successful. And now we're actually working with a production company called 9 Story in Toronto to develop a kids TV show that will also focus on the environment and climate change. It's kind of being positioned as, like a Wild Kratts for a slightly older age group.
That's fantastic. Well, we do have some questions from our filmmakers, and I believe you all have seen the films in our climate lineup. We were really thrilled to get so many films on this topic this year. So our first question is from Taryn McKinney Lambert. She is a teenager now. She was about 10 when she made this film. She's a director of Our Islands, Our Future, which focuses on the Bahamas. And she wanted to ask, first of all, Kenn, do you have any ideas for integrating climate change action, entertainment brands, clearly, to reach people who wouldn't usually care at all about climate change or even don't believe that it's happening?
It's a great question, and thank you. And I'm going to have to confess that before I started on this project, I was a guy that didn't recycle, didn't really understand the damage that I was doing, to the environment. So I'm learning along with our audience, which is quite amazing. And I'm sure I'm going to get, someone's going to throw a rock at me for that. But we, right now, the answer is 100% yes. And I was going to jump in right after Tovah spoke, because one of the things that we're trying to do is launch the largest climate education initiative ever in the world. And the reason that we haven't put Meteoheroes on TV in America or in North America is because I'm really insistent that it's part of this global education initiative that we're trying to do. We have a lot of interest in the series, but the series has become more than a series. It's in 200 countries, it's in 22 different languages, and it really is a movement where kids feel empowered to be able, they realize that they and they alone have the power to change the world. And that's what this climate education initiative is. And Tovah, you're 100% right that a 5-year-old has a very different capacity, which is why we made this show in such a way that the waters don't rise the way waters would really rise in the real world, but they rise in a way that a 5-year-old can understand. So this climate education initiative is it's age graded for kids from the ages of 4 to 10 years old. We already have 30,000 schools in America committed to it, and it's really now just a funding issue for us. But 100% for this series specifically, because it's more than entertainment. It really is a lifeline for a lot of kids that are just desperate for information, and we want it to make sure that it rises to the occasion.
And we're really thrilled to have Meteoheroes as a part of the Atlanta Children's Film Festival, so that our audiences can also experience that series. So also from Taryn, this is for Sara. Young people living in small, low-lying islands are especially vulnerable to climate change. What do you think is an effective way to ensure that voices and experiences are heard and taken into consideration in the climate conversation?
Well, first of all, I want to applaud this film festival because I think having a specific stream that highlights climate and environmental films is awesome. I think for this, I really want to call on all the adults and the professionals working in the industry, because I think this is really one of the best things that we can do today, because this really is an issue for the young people who are going to be dealing with the consequences of this. We really need to take on the role of mentor, educator, celebrator of young people and the work that they're doing. So one thing that I do is I mentor high school students, and I go into classrooms and I give science communication workshops just voluntarily to help kids who are working on their science fair projects, to help them put that communication twist and then create a communication piece to help tailor their message and to frame it in a way that's going to resonate and help them accomplish what they want to accomplish. But also, if you're a young person and you need help with something, don't hesitate to go and ask somebody working in the industry. Email, put a call out. I think if you go and you ask somebody for help, or you want to learn how to do something better, or you want help raising awareness. I noticed, for example, that you partnered with several organizations on your film, which is great because those organizations can help amplify and elevate the message that you're trying to get out. So really, go out there, ask for help if you're not getting it. And if you're one of the adults working in the industry, look around for young people and think of ways that you can be empowering them.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Kareem Mortimer, who was the producer of Our Islands, Our Future. And this is a very short film about the Bahamas, but it is so beautiful, and you can't believe that it was actually written and put together by a very young child, a 10-year-old. So this is for Tovah. What advice do you have for parents and educators who want to engage children in conversations about climate change in a positive and empowering way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's something that we're thinking about all the time, pretty much. I think, you know, being honest with our kids about what's happening. And, you know, sometimes I think as adults, our impulse is to tell our kids not to worry about things. And that's kind of the opposite of what you want to do. You actually like really want to validate feelings. And one of the ways that you can validate feelings most effectively is by sharing your own. I mean, you know, we talk about eco-anxiety in relation to kids a lot of the time, but the reality is that all of us, or many of us, feel eco-anxiety in different ways, to the point where there's, you know, eco paralysis, like there's 5 or 6 different terms for kind of different like subsections of eco anxiety. That's how prevalent it is. And so I think, you know, listening to kids' concerns, validating those concerns, sharing your own feelings about it, but then looking for things that you can do together is one of the most impactful ways. And also learning about what people and groups are doing locally in your area and internationally or nationally. All of those things can help to provide more hope when you actually kind of understand that there are positive things going on, when you seek out good news. Like, the only thing the media is going to serve up to us is negative news, because that's what sells and gets the eyeballs. So it's really up to us to kind of do the research and find those positive stories, which can help to provide kids with more hopefulness. And then I also think that it can be really useful, and this is for parents or educators or adults, but also just for the whole kind of media machine in general, is things don't have to either be about climate change or not about climate change. Like normalizing things, like there's a film, so that film, I loved it. I thought it was really impactful. It was about the Bahamas from that lens, but think about how many movies and television shows we see that take place in low-lying, beautiful islands where there's never any mention, just casual mentions of changing weather patterns, of, certain tourist seasons changing because of what's happening with the climate. I think we have to just start normalizing it as part of discussions that aren't solely about climate change, as a way to just be able to speak more openly about all of our experiences in day-to-day life with it.
Absolutely. And I think, it's not impossible to do, because there's a history in entertainment media of bringing in issues that are of importance to people and normalizing them, things that have seemed maybe fringe or that no one's paying attention to. And if you look at what our media landscape looks like today compared to, say, 1950s, it's very different. And a lot of that has been brought about through public pressure.
Yeah. Well, and I was even thinking when she, in the film, she talked about, this asset that they have of the sun, and, why are we drilling for oil when we could be using the sun? And I was thinking, we should have why have the plumber come to your house as part of a plot and not have a solar panel installer? Those are some of those ways that you can start to incorporate these things.
Or why have the lawn being mowed when you could be planting trees?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I jump in for 1 second here? Tovah, I agree with you 100%. And what we say in the office quite often, and a conversation Luigi and I have literally daily, right, is that kids pick up the emotional cues from the adults in their lives. So it's super important that, yes, you should be concerned with what's happening with the world today, with the planet, whether it's water or whatever, but everything that we do is somehow impacted by climate change. So it is a normal, it should be normalized. But when we're talking to our youngest kids, what we have to do is make sure that the communication we're giving them doesn't leave them in fear. We have to give them a sense of hope by telling them that they have the power to change the world. And if we can get everybody to do one little thing, we will change the world. So it starts with us. And what we try to do is encourage kids to know that, yes, you won't be able to solve climate change yourself, but you will if you do it. If you do this and somebody else does this and each one of us does the little bit that we can, we will change the world. And I think that that's when we're talking with our kids, we have to tell them the truth about what's happening, but we have to give them a sense of light and hope and that they have the power. And I think that's just that to tack on to what you were saying. You're spot on with
we have another question that actually addresses that exactly, from Carolyn Backel, who is the director of I Won't Stand For It. I Won't Stand For It is a documentary about a half hour long about a high school student from Winnipeg who is an Indigenous person and active on Indigenous civil rights and environmental issues. And it's
loved it.
Amazing.
I loved it so much. So
yeah,
good.
really, everyone should watch this film. But she asks, how do you navigate tone when communicating the climate crisis to children for them to understand the pressing importance of the issues without scaring them extensively?
I think for that, again, Tovah touched on this too, but just focusing on the solutions. And rather than focusing on the climate crisis, thinking about the climate future and what is the future that we want to imagine for ourselves, because this isn't just all about sacrifice. This is also an opportunity to revisit our energy systems, to access cheap, very cheap energy. We're approaching, an era where energy could potentially be almost free with some of the innovations that are coming along. It's a very exciting time, and revisiting our transportation systems and how we get people around. So imagining our climate future as a more sustainable, as a more equitable, as just a better future for humans, and getting them thinking about it from that sense, rather than getting mired down in all the trouble that we are in. And then, of course, focusing on those solutions and those community level actions, those large scale actions, because we all know that changing a light bulb is not going to put a dent in the trouble that we're in. But when we see schools switching to electric buses or implementing composting programs across districts, or we see massive wind farms going up, that's the scale of solution that is going to make kids feel hopeful and empowered about the future.
Sara, can I just say one thing? You're right. And when a child changes the light bulb, right? When you have the 5-year-old who knows that this light bulb will save 1 kilogram of something or 1 kilowatt or whatever it is, that child feels empowered that they made a difference. And so, yes, in the scope of the world, that lone light bulb won't do anything, but the way it impacts that child and the way that child sees themselves now as an activist is what changes the world. It's that change of perception, So one of the things that we're looking at now is part of this climate education initiative we're doing is we've teamed up with the people from Kids First, a coalition from children and media, where we have their young journalists interviewing real kids in the real world, making a real difference. So all of these producers and creators of content are all super interesting to us and super interesting for other kids to meet those kids who were just ordinary children who decided to change a light bulb. But the next thing you know, they're now making movies and doing things. And I think it's wildly inspiring for this generation to see their generation making even the smallest contribution to change the world.
Absolutely. You know, the theme of this festival is dreams to action, because we saw so many films that are talking about kids who are activists or who see a problem and then go after solutions. So the next question is from a 16-year-old director of the film Hope for the Future. And the Hope for the Future is a short documentary that focuses on girls who are doing science work in the field, so field work. So they're out there, you know, I think north of Chicago, and they're looking at creatures in streams and measuring water quality and learning all about really how to do science. So her question is, this is Hannah Hutchins, a 16-year-old director of Hope for the Future. As a sophomore in high school, I will need to choose a college major soon. I wonder how AI will impact the filmmaking industry. And I'm curious about the potential benefits of AI, including lowering the carbon footprint of film productions, and also concerned about the negative impacts. And I'd like to hear the experts' opinions. So this is kind of a different question. Who wants to go first?
I am not the expert for this one, but it's a great question, and I'm looking forward to someone else telling me the answer to it.
Do you want me to do it, Sarah? You go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say I don't think anybody knows how AI is going to impact the industry or any other. I mean, it's going to impact everything from chemistry to the financial. I mean, everything is going to be impacted by AI. And so I think it's really important to pay attention to how it can be used as a tool in the industry that you're interested in, and learn how to apply it to what you're interested in. I think that's really important. I don't know if you want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the few people that finds AI completely terrifying and not at all interesting. You know, I think that there's some extraordinary things AI can do in the medical world. You know, as far as people who have trouble hearing or people who have trouble with speech. Like, there's some fantastic breakthroughs to do in a medical space. In the creative space, having a robot, create stuff and fact checking, and there's so much that can go wrong that for me, it's a terrifying thing. But if you look at what's going on in the industry right now as a whole, you've got the Writers Guild that's on strike now. Directors Guild is going on strike. Everyone says the SAG, the actors are going on strike, all because of AI and what it's doing or what it could potentially do to the industry. I think that from a creative standpoint, when you're talking about the arts, it's a terrifying thing if we go too far down this path, because I think that we're relying on a different set of facts and a different set of tools. And I don't know that the outcome, while it'll be fun to be able to see yourself say something you never said, it's also super terrifying that people can say things with your face that you didn't say, if that makes sense. So I don't believe personally that AI is going to help. It's certainly, I don't see how it's going to help in this particular space.
Yeah, I would be one to say, wait, let's put the brakes on this. We need to think this through. So those
I love the Terminator. When it came out, I thought, oh my God, what a freaking great movie, right? Because I knew it wasn't real. And as we get closer to art, mimicking reality or reality mimicking art, it's getting scarier and scarier, because we know from the Terminator exactly what's going to happen. And it's just a matter of time. There was a thing on CNN yesterday about how this robot could read your mind. And I'm like, if we're at the very early stages of AI and a robot has the potential to read your mind, or somebody could just walk by with their phone and be able to read what's going on and then use that against you, I don't know. We should not be doing a whole lot in AI. We should there should be some very strong regulations, and hopefully that's the future regulation. Yeah.
So my advice for the student would then, because everything is changing and we talk about AI, and then we've got the climate crisis, which is also going to change everything. I would really focus on being nimble, being connected, and being flexible. And to be honest, working in this field, you already have to be nimble. I mean, it's a roller coaster ride. Projects are happening, projects are on hold, projects are, you don't know about funding. It's a real roller coaster. But if you're passionate about it and this is what you want to do, just focus on good storytelling, focus on learning as much as you can. And somebody is going to do this with AI or without AI, and just continue to strive for excellence in yourself and in your practice, and you'll be just fine.
So,
As a 16-year-old filmmaker, she's already got the focus on science and the focus on media.
I think the trick here, though, is depending on the age of the child that you're targeting your entertainment for, no matter what the subject matter is, if it's not fun and it's not funny, you're not going to the audience is not going to gravitate to it. So whether you're using AI or whether you're using a 90-year-old lady in the, that you have hidden in a bell tower to write your content, if it's not fun and it's not funny, it's not going to attract an audience. So regardless of the subject matter, you have to find a way for the youngest of children. As they get older, you can, it can be more intellectually based, but if you want to attract and hold and engage that audience, it has to be fun and fun.
And I do think there's some opportunity for more transparency, or just more kind of discussion about how media is produced. And there's a lot of progress made on like sustainable film sets and things like that, in the same way that consumers want to purchase products that they feel have been made responsibly. I think the same should go for media. And so there's probably an opportunity to be more open and transparent about where where filming's taking place, how the set was set up, like how just everything from catering to generators to, all of those things, so that, the consumers of those media can make, conscious choices for what they consume and why.
We just launched a platform on the 21st of April, just the day before Earth Day. We did a world premiere of a Meteoheroes live educational event on this site, itsybitsywow.com. And the site in many ways was a retail store that's turned into something significantly different. When we were looking at a project like Blackjack, a series of mine, the issue of whether it was sustainable or green content was not really an issue. But when you represent a project or you create a project like Meteoheroes, it is an issue. And so now you have to deal with, okay, do you make a product that's going to cost the consumer a little bit more, because it's sustainable or green or from recycled plastics? Or do you just, find the most cost-effective product? And what we found ourselves doing was creating both of those products on this site, so that we weren't telling the consumer what they had to do. If you want to be conservative, you want to conserve and be green or sustainable, that option's available to you. And if you're just looking for a product at the best price you can get, then that product's available to you. And I think that one of the things that we tend to do wrong is we impose our beliefs onto the consumer, or onto our audience. And I like to create the opportunity to say, it's what we did with the Teletubbies. You're putting your kid in front of a TV screen. Do you want them to have something age appropriate for them or not? That should be your choice. So here's something age appropriate, now make your choice. And so we're doing the same thing on a commercial basis. If it were me personally, everything would be green and sustainable, right? But I can't impose that on my audience. So I just have to give it to them as an option, and then hope they choose what's going to be best for the environment.
Thank you. Yes, since we are through our with our filmmaker questions, this is such a powerhouse panel, and I'm so thrilled that you all are getting to meet each other, and I'm getting to meet you. I'd like to just open it up for people to ask each other some questions, so interact with each other. I'd love to see collaboration going forward.
I end up on panels. I used to do them quite often, and I started doing them less and less because the people on the panel were always trying to pitch something of theirs, and not actually interested in what the audience was actually interested in. So this is one of the first panels I've been on forever where you're just smart, and you care. And so it's fun for me. So just as a general statement, I'm glad I'm on this panel with you all. So.
We're glad to.
Yeah, and I want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing, because there's very little content out there to date for young people that's appropriately tailored for them around climate change. And, they're hearing about it every day, and they're not getting information that is appropriate for them, that helps them break it down, that is aimed at helping them to feel empowered and hopeful. And we desperately need more content. And there's been a long-standing misconception in children's media industry, and Ken, you touched on this before, that you can't touch climate change because it's too depressing, and nobody's going to want to air that, and it's too controversial. And it turns out that's absolutely not true. We're seeing more and more producers and networks take on the topic. We've got Octonauts Above and Beyond, which is aimed at kids 4 to 6, who are dealing with it in a totally age-appropriate way. And it's fun, and it's hilarious, and it's empowering, and it's meeting kids where they are around animals and saving things that they love. So there's all kinds of stuff that's starting to happen. And I think what we need to do now is to really just make sure this continues, and to find ways of getting more content out there, and normalize this, and not make it such a niche topic in the industry. I'm glad to see it's getting talked about, but we now need to make this sort of normalized across the board, and more mainstream, as Tovah touched on earlier. Just start normalizing these behaviors, normalizing these conversations at home, and the things that kids are doing at school.
Yeah. And maybe just a comment in general on the films that, that we've been talking about. They came from such different and unique perspectives. You have in the I Won't Stand For It, this kind of activist who has obviously a certain kind of view of the world in a place that she comes from, really focused on changing things and, holding people to account, or getting people to think, and educating them. And I was really inspired by that, but also the kids in the Bahamas who are actually experiencing this every day and kind of wondering about what their place in the world is. Will other people care? The girls that are kind of on this nature education journey with other groups in their schools. It was just, and even the short little animated film, which we haven't talked about, but which was more just about hopefulness and what we can do, and the impact of an individual action. And so I just felt like the selection of films together really told the story of all of the different perspectives that young people around the world, in North America, are coming at this issue from, and all of the different ways that we can kind of address it and have an outlet for some of these concerns about climate change and about the future. So I was really inspired by all of them.
Actually, the Seeds of Change was made by a 10-year-old, and that came to us via Kids First, which focuses on getting positive and quality media content to children and families.
And I want to offer to the Film Fest, if you have young people who want help in science communication, or if you want to run a workshop sometime for young people on climate change communication or science communication, I'd be so happy to help, and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing to elevate and celebrate the work of these amazing young people.
Well, Kids Video Connection focuses on teaching kids about media production, video production, and media literacy. And I think media literacy around the topic of science would be really apt. The president of Kids Video Connection is Alicia Johnson, and we have her to thank as well for allowing us to focus on this topic and encouraging it.
One of the things that we're hoping to do, or planning to do, is to bring more awareness to these films, is to take all of them and put them up on Itsy Bitsy Wow, so there's just broader exposure for kids to see other kids making a difference, right? Because whether it's a child in the Bahamas that's worried about water levels, or it's someone that's worried about drought, or it's in every kid is dealing with climate anxiety or eco anxiety, you know, in their own way, from their own perspective. Like the crops are dying, or because there's no water, or we're drowning, or there's, you know, there's typhoons. It's just everyone's dealing with it from another place, and you just have a fantastic selection or a cross section, but there are millions and millions and millions of these stories. So I think it's fantastic that you're sharing them, and we're going to try to help expose them to a broader audience.
Yeah, I think something that's really wonderful about what this film festival does is these are independently made films.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what film festivals can do that sometimes mainstream media cannot do, which is get those voices out there. So we're excited to be able to do that.
You know,
Daniel?
my hope is that we're able to take some of these young producers and actually bring them into this other series I was mentioning, Real Superheroes Don't Wear Capes, so that kids can see the actual filmmaker behind the film and their mission, and then we try to help them move their mission forward. That's part of our goal in this project.
That would be a wonderful thing for these filmmakers.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely fantastic. So I want to thank everybody so much, and thank you, Daniel, for putting everything together. And it's just, it's been a real pleasure talking with all of you.
Thank you.
And
Tovah,
I hope
would
to
love
talk-
to stay in touch with the two of you after this panel.
Absolutely, that would be great. And maybe I'll just give one plug for any kid out there that wants to learn more about climate change or about what they can do. Earth Rangers is totally free. You can download the app and become a member. And if you use code Tovah, you'll get some bonus points.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you all so much on behalf of Kids Video Connection, Atlanta Children's Film Festival, the whole team, and our audiences. I know this means a lot to us, the filmmakers. I think this was just such a rich conversation. There's so much brain power and passion and awesome work being done in this room that, I really hope that we all do keep in touch and move forward. I'm just, really, really grateful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for having us. Real pleasure. Nice to meet you all.
Yep.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.